A hospital cleaner, unjustly dismissed, entered a stranger's car, mistaking it for a taxi. After recounting her ordeal, she observed the man silently dial a number and issue a stark command. "Everyone to the office in 1 hour, no exceptions. Before we continue, please tell me your country of origin and your age." Enjoy the story. Tamara Kuznetsova had never been one for grand pronouncements or idle gossip. Her life unfolded with quiet regularity. Rise early, put the kettle on, wake her grandson Lyosha, pack his school things, then catch the bus to the hospital. There, she'd served as a cleaner for nearly 19 years. Not a doctor nor a nurse, but without her diligent hands, her habit of scrubbing everything as if it were her own home, any hospital would quickly devolve into a chaotic, unsanitary place. She was respected in a subdued manner, no effusive praise to her face, no backslapping, for that was simply not the way things were done. Yet if a patient's IV drip faltered in the dead of night, if someone felt unwell, or if water was needed or a soiled sheet required changing, someone would invariably say, "Fetch Tamara, she won't refuse." However, over the past 2 years, much had changed at the hospital. New management arrived, bringing with them new protocols and an avalanche of paperwork. The words optimization, cost-saving, and metrics became increasingly common. Strange ledgers appeared, requiring cleaners to sign off on things they'd never even seen. Reprimands for improperly filled-out forms or misplaced signatures grew more frequent. Tamara endured. She was accustomed to enduring. But patience, like any fabric, can eventually tear, not from a violent tug, but from constant, subtle tension. On that particular day, Tamara arrived for her shift at 7 o'clock in the morning, as always. The corridors still held the cool scent of the night. Outside, a gray dawn was breaking. She had barely managed to change into her old smock, its button painstakingly sewn back on, and tie her headscarf, when the head nurse, Galina Pavlovna, called out to her, "Tamara, come to the manager's office immediately." There was something in Galina Pavlovna's tone that made Tamara's insides clench. It wasn't anger nor anxiety, but a cold, professional detachment, as if they were discussing the disposal of old furniture. Tamara wiped her palms on her smock and went. In the manager's office, 3 individuals were present: the manager himself, a lawyer from the administration, and the security guard, usually seen only at the entrance. "Tamara Ivanovna," the manager began, without even looking up from his papers, "we need to have a serious discussion with you." She stood there like a student before a blackboard. Her heart pounded, but she showed no outward sign. "A complaint has been filed," he continued curtly. "A patient claims you spoke to her rudely, refused to assist her, and furthermore," he paused, as if searching for the right word, "a shortage of consumables has been discovered." For a moment, Tamara couldn't comprehend what she was hearing. "What complaint? What shortage?" she whispered. "I wasn't even in that room yesterday, the one where the complaining woman is. I was cleaning the corridor and the dressing room. And the consumables? I don't handle consumables. I don't even have keys to the supply room." The lawyer, young and impeccably presented, as if from a bank card advertisement, looked up. "Everything is documented here, Tamara Ivanovna," he stated. "Your signature is in the logbook." Tamara felt a rush of blood to her face. Mine? She moved closer and saw the log. The signature did indeed resemble hers, a brief TK, as she always signed, yet the handwriting seemed unfamiliar, too neat, as if drawn out slowly. "I did not sign," Tamara said, her voice firmer now. "That is not my signature." Galina Pavlovna, standing in the doorway, smirked. "Oh, of course. As soon as responsibility is involved, not me." Tamara looked at her and suddenly understood. "It's already decided. There's no discussion, no investigation. It's decided. They've simply erased me." "You have the opportunity to write an explanation," the manager said, finally meeting her gaze. "However, given the circumstances, we will be forced to—" He left the sentence unfinished as the lawyer slid a paper towards her. "The dismissal order, please review it." Tamara read the lines, the letters blurring before her eyes. For gross violation of labor discipline, loss of trust. These words felt as if she had stolen 1,000,000, not scrubbed floors. "I will not sign it," she declared. "I will not sign." "Then we will note your refusal," the lawyer replied calmly, "but it changes nothing." The security guard stepped closer. "Hand over your pass," he instructed. And it was then that Tamara felt true fear for the first time. Not for herself, but for her grandson, for how she would buy him new shoes tomorrow, for his medicine, for the utility bills, for the stain on her name that would prevent her from even being considered for another hospital position. She did not cry. She picked up her bag, which held a spare pair of socks, an apple, and a small packet of wet wipes, and left. Galina Pavlovna didn't even watch her go, her attention fixed on her phone. It was cold outside. Tamara paused at the hospital entrance and suddenly realized she didn't know where to go. Home? Yes, but home meant looking Leosha in the eye and pretending everything was fine. She headed for the bus stop, but her feet turned, as if of their own accord, towards the grocery store. She needed bread, milk. Habit was stronger than misfortune. At the checkout, she mechanically counted her change, then spotted a juice box on sale that Leosha liked. She bought 2. Only when she stepped back outside did her hands begin to tremble. She sat on a bench by the hospital parking lot where the doctors' and occasional visitors' cars usually parked. Suddenly, a dark car pulled up beside her. It wasn't flashy or expensive, just neat, devoid of stickers or ostentatious displays. The driver lowered the window. "Did you call for a taxi?" he asked. Tamara flinched. "Yes," she replied. "Yes, I did." "Get in," the man said curtly. She settled into the back seat, clutching her bag to her chest, and only then did she truly observe the driver. He appeared to be around 40, with a calm face and attentive eyes. He wore no gold chains or expensive watches, just a simple jacket, his hands resting neatly on the steering wheel. "Where to?" he asked. Tamara gave him the address. The car moved forward. For a while, they drove in silence, a comfortable quiet that didn't press or demand explanations. Tamara looked out the window, trying to envision how to start a new life, perhaps a cleaner at a shop or in a school, but that would require more paperwork. The man suddenly inquired, "Were you fired?" Tamara sharply turned her head. "What? I saw you leaving." He wasn't looking in the rearview mirror, but his voice was assured. "You left the way people do after a blow, not after finishing work." She wanted to dismiss it, to say, "You're mistaken." But she couldn't. Something stirred within her chest, and the words began to flow, quietly at first, then more rapidly. She told him everything. How she'd been summoned, how the logbook had been presented, how loss of trust had been written, how the signature wasn't hers, how Galina Pavlovna had been looking at her askance for some time. It was because Tamara had once refused to sign a ledger retroactively. She had seen consumables disappearing, but had remained silent, not wanting to pry. The man listened without interruption. He asked only once, "Are you certain the signature was forged?" "Absolutely," Tamara affirmed. "I know my signature, and I wasn't in that patient's room yesterday." "Are there cameras in the corridors?" he inquired. "Yes," Tamara nodded. "They were installed recently for security, they say." The man exhaled softly, as if piecing together a puzzle. Then he stopped the car by the side of the road, ensuring it wouldn't obstruct traffic. "What is your name?" he asked. "Tamara." "Your surname?" She gave it. The man took out his phone and dialed. Tamara heard his voice change, from conversational to commanding, concise. "This is Melnikov. Yes. Listen carefully. Everyone in the office, including the head lawyer, the security chief, and the manager, and have the camera footage ready. Yesterday's and today's." He paused. "Yes, immediately. And be warned, there will be an inquiry." He hung up, put his phone away and looked at Tamara through the rearview mirror. "You mentioned you have a grandson. Does someone have him?" His voice had returned to its calm tone. "A neighbor can pick him up," Tamara whispered. "And what are you? Who are you?" "That's not important," he replied. "What's important is this. Are you prepared to state everything you've told me officially, without shouting, without emotion, just the facts?" Tamara felt as though she were in a dream. It seemed she had stumbled into someone else's story. "I am prepared," she swallowed, "but they will overwhelm me there. They have connections." The man nodded slightly. "Connections are useful, but documents and cameras are better." And then Tamara finally understood. This was not a taxi. Not a taxi at all. 40 minutes later, they were back at the hospital. Tamara walked down the corridor, her legs feeling like jelly. She was led not to a patient ward, but to the administrative wing, the domain of superiors, where ordinary cleaners only ventured in dire circumstances. In the chief physician's office, people had already gathered. Tamara saw Galina Pavlovna. She stood by the window, clutching her bag, looking flustered and frightened for the first time. The lawyer sat at the table, flipping through papers, feigning control. The manager was pale. The security guard fiddled with his cap. And there was the man. He stood beside Chief Physician Melnikov as if they were old acquaintances, on equal footing. The chief physician cleared his throat. "Tamara Ivanovna, please, have a seat." His voice was even but strained. "We need to clarify a few points." Tamara sat on the edge of a chair. "To begin," the man said. Now she knew his name from the conversation. "Show me the dismissal order and the logbook with the signature." The lawyer quickly placed the documents on the table. "And the camera footage," the man added. "Yesterday, from 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. The corridor outside the patient's room where the complaint was filed, and the corridor leading to the consumables storage." "We have cameras," the manager began. "You have cameras," the man interrupted calmly. "I saw them at the entrance and in the hallway. Don't delay." The security guard dashed out and returned with a USB drive. They connected a monitor. The corridor appeared on the screen. People in smocks moved back and forth. The time in the corner changed. Tamara watched, holding her breath. "Here," the man said. "This is yesterday. Room number 7. Tamara Ivanovna. Do you recognize yourself?" Tamara leaned closer. "No, I'm not there." The recording showed a nurse entering the room, followed by a cleaner, but not Tamara. The cleaner was younger and stouter, her hair styled differently. "And Tamara Ivanovna's signature?" the man inquired softly. "Interesting." Galina Pavlovna flinched. "The cameras don't capture everything," she snapped. "There are blind spots." The man looked at her, silencing her. "Very well," he said. "Then let's look at the storage." Another corridor appeared on the screen. The time, late morning. The camera focused on a door labeled storage. The door opened. Galina Pavlovna emerged, glancing around. Then the security guard stepped out. They exchanged a few quick words, and the guard handed her a set of keys. The office fell silent like an operating room. The chief physician slowly raised his head. "Galina Pavlovna," he said. This is not what you think," she began rapidly. "I was just checking." "You were checking," the man clarified, "in the presence of the security guard and without the manager's authorization." The guard turned pale. "I was told," he stammered. "I was told to assist." "Who told you?" the man asked. The guard looked at Galina Pavlovna, then at the chief physician, and finally lowered his eyes. "Galina Pavlovna said so, and also—" He hesitated. "She said it needed to be tidied up before an inspection." Tamara sat, her insides churning. So she hadn't been mistaken. They had indeed tried to frame her. "And now, the logbook," the man said. "Let's compare Tamara Ivanovna's signature with the one in her personnel file. Do we have a personnel file?" The lawyer nodded and produced a folder. They compared. Anyone, even without expertise, could see it. The signature in the logbook was a careful imitation, but it was not hers. Tamara's handwriting was swift with a characteristic slant. The one in the log was too uniform. The chief physician leaned back in his chair. "So," he declared, "the order was processed prematurely." Galina Pavlovna attempted to speak, but her words were weak and ineffectual. The manager remained silent. The lawyer, no longer sifting through papers, sat like a chastened schoolboy. "Tamara Ivanovna," the man inquired gently, "are you prepared to submit a statement that the signature was forged and provide your account of the pressure exerted on you?" Tamara clasped her hands. "I am," she said, "but I need to live to feed my grandson. I can't spend years in court." "You won't have to," he replied, "if everything is handled correctly." And then Tamara finally dared to ask, her throat dry. "Excuse me, but who are you?" Chief Physician Melnikov glanced briefly at the man as if seeking permission. "Artyom Sergeyevich Sinitsyn," the man introduced himself. "Internal Control Service. We investigate complaints related to quality and safety, and unfortunately, such situations are more common than one might wish." He said this without pretense, simply stating a fact. A shiver ran down Tamara's spine. She had inadvertently entered a car belonging to someone who was already investigating the matter, and she had simply provided him with the key. That same day, the dismissal order was suspended. Tamara was given a document stating that the record in her employment file would be revised following an internal investigation. She was asked to write a statement. She was offered a couple of days off to recover, but Tamara declined. "I want to go back to work," she said quietly. "I am not a criminal." She left the office not as a victor, nor a hero, but simply as a person who, for the first time in a long time, had been truly heard. The next day, a strange quiet pervaded the ward. Galina Pavlovna did not report for duty, citing illness. The security guard walked past Tamara without meeting her eye. The manager attempted to speak with her a couple of times, but the words failed him. The most unexpected development was something else entirely. The young nurse, Lena, approached Tamara in the corridor and whispered, "Tamara Ivanovna, I'm so sorry. I saw how they framed you. I was afraid. I have a mortgage. But if you need me, I'll tell the truth." Tamara looked at her, feeling not anger, but weary pity. "Tell them, Lenochka," she replied. "Tell them what happened, not just for me, but so that tomorrow they don't try to do this to you." Lena nodded and walked away, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. The internal investigation proceeded swiftly and discreetly, but the hospital buzzed with rumors. Some whispered of higher authorities arriving, others of impending arrests. Tamara tried not to listen. She performed her duties, cleaning, wiping, assisting, just as before. But inside, a single thought echoed, "I must not remain silent when I see injustice." A week later, Artyom Sergeyevich returned to the hospital. He didn't pretend to be a friend, but simply approached Tamara in the corridor, which smelled of chlorine and fresh linens. "Tamara Ivanovna," he said, "the dismissal order has been rescinded. Your status has been officially reinstated, and the loss of trust notation will not be entered. Furthermore, Galina Pavlovna has been suspended pending further investigation. The materials have been forwarded to the supervisory authorities. The law will take its course." Tamara listened, unable to fully believe it. "And I," she faltered, "will I be allowed to live in peace now?" Artyom Sergeyevich offered a slight smile, just a hint at the corner of his lips. "Peacefully? Perhaps not immediately, but now you have the most important thing. You know that if you speak the truth, it can make a difference, and you are not alone." He turned to leave, but Tamara suddenly said, "Thank you. I only got into that car out of desperation." "Sometimes," he replied, "the most important step is taken precisely out of desperation, when there is nothing left to lose but one's dignity." And he left. A month passed. Much had changed at the hospital, not in words but in small details. Demands to sign documents retroactively ceased. Logbooks were kept more meticulously. A new head nurse arrived, strict but fair. The security guard no longer spoke rudely to the staff, and the manager no longer spoke as if everyone owed him something. Tamara didn't become wealthy, didn't buy an apartment, and didn't go on vacation. Her life remained the same. Her grandson, her work, the bus, the morning kettle. But inwardly, she had transformed. One evening, returning home, she saw her neighbor by the entrance. "Tamar," she said, "listen, is it true they wanted to fire you, and then everything somehow turned around?" Tamara nodded. "True? And you weren't afraid?" Tamara pondered. Had she been afraid? Of course she had been terrified, to the point of trembling, to the point of darkness in her eyes. But she suddenly realized that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is when you are afraid, but you still say no to injustice. "I was afraid," she admitted honestly, "but remaining silent is even more frightening. Silence lives in your soul like dirt. It's hard to wash away." That evening, Leosha asked, "Grandma, why are you smiling today?" Tamara stroked his head. "Because, Leoshenka, sometimes life gives a person a chance, and it's important not to miss it." He didn't understand, of course. He was only 9, but he smiled back, and that was enough. And if someone were to ask Tamara what this experience had taught her, she would simply say, without fancy words, "Sometimes a person believes they are insignificant and have no influence, but it turns out they decide at least whether to remain silent when they witness wrongdoing. And sometimes a single honest voice is enough to shift the world slightly towards justice."